Time for VUC. In our 11th year, with us on our journey this year, Simwood.com. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Greenfield Tech. Go to greenfield.tech and see how they can make your tech dreams both feasible and affordable. Our conference bridge is the best you'll ever find at zipdx.com. VUC.me is hosted on Bluehost. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are provided by voxphone.com. Hey now everybody, it's the VUC665 for September 29th, 2017, and I'm going to switch you right over to Miss Allison Smith. Allison.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Woo! It's Astricon Eve.
I'm telling you, this is exciting stuff, and I'm going to show everybody else who's here. Michael did the pre-roll. Hello, Michael. Muted.
Oh, muted. I'm so muted. That's bad. Yeah, it's almost like not a creature was stirring, except everybody manning all the servers that are making the Astricon Digium world fly. So
there you go. This is Mr. Corrado. Corrado, say hello.
Let me unmute myself. Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Say that in Italian, please.
Buonasera.
Now in Scotch. Scots. And of course, Mr. Andy Smith.
Hello, everybody. It might be Astricon Eve, but I'm afraid I shan't be joining you. So there we go.
Is Bodie going to Astricon?
Oh yes, he's off tomorrow. I have Dan Lane and Dan Jenkins talking to me at the moment, saying what time's he flying, and frankly, I don't know.
And Dan Jenkins may be joining us if we have any luck. He said he would change his shirt. Allison, tell us about the new YouTube channel, which, by the way, while people are listening to this, they can go to vuc.me/voicegal. It's a temporary redirect so that it's easy for you to, if you're just listening to this on audio, you can go there, vuc.me/voicegal. Allison, what's up with this YouTube channel?
Yeah, well, you know, I was kind of reluctant actually to do anything on film. I really hate myself on film, but it's become kind of almost like a necessary evil. You have to do something on YouTube next to Google. It's like the top search engine. So I actually hired a husband and wife videographer, and we did this little shoot in a cute little studio, and I changed outfits for every video and changed phones in the background. If you watch all the videos, you'll notice that everything's different in each one. So yeah, I just sort of talk about little IVR tips and tricks, ways that you can improve your IVR, and had fun doing it. And I seem to be getting some good feedback, although comments are disabled, but maybe I will change that ruling a little bit and just see how it goes. Yeah, I'm hesitant though to enable comments.
Okay, and I am trying to, here we go, to get... I'll just briefly be able to show this.
I believe David Buffet just joined us.
And Mr. David Duffet has joined us, yes.
Buffet.
Round.
Only be in Quebec, no?
Yeah. Wow. With snazzy new eyeglasses, too, it looks like he's got some new specs.
Hello.
Here's a quick glimpse, before we get to David, here's a quick glimpse at the channel. I don't want to leave it too long because it's probably got thousands of passwords and embarrassing bookmark links. There we go. So, Mr. Duffet, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Randy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound fine.
Good. I only asked because I did a ClueCon weekly, and I had all sorts of audio problems, and it turned out to be a fault on my MacBook. But if you can hear me, then that's great. Goodness me, Andy, it seems like you and I both have shelves full of telephones behind us.
Yeah, I know. Most of yours might work, though.
So I've deliberately done some product placement here as well with my Simwood cup of tea.
Ooh, look at that.
Beautiful, beautiful.
What do? They turn an application developer into a telco, is that right?
Correct.
That's right. So what did they turn you into?
something useful would be a great change.
David, let me just weigh in on the glasses. I like them a lot. They look really nice.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Talking of Simwood, actually, young Simon Woodhead will be speaking at Astricon this year. He's one of the speakers, along with nearly 60 others, all in the one place at the one time.
And we are going to have Dan Jenkins chiming in a little bit later. But while we have Allison, because Allison is a hot property, she has to go very soon. She has a dentist appointment or some silly thing like that. No, she has a professional thing she has to do. Allison, so what are we going to find on this? I'm looking at it now. It's called, by the way, the IVR Lounge. I'm sorry I didn't quite get that before. The IVR Lounge, episode 1, the caller's attention span is, I presume, limited because that's cut off. But let's hear a little about what is the point of this? I see it, but from your standpoint, why are we doing this?
Yeah, well, to address that point of the caller's attention span, this is something that I talk about in all of my talks, and I blog about it a lot. I always want people that write IVR systems to understand that the caller's attention span and patience is way shorter than you think it is. I'm just going to take an informal poll of you guys. How many options do you think should be in an opening menu of an IVR?
Maximum 4.
I'll go 4 with Andy.
4.
You guys are all
Actually, in all fairness, that would depend on how many. If you're in a country, there's only one language, maybe 2. In other words, your language plus English. If you're in the United States, you always have at least English and Spanish. And if it was going to be like the immigration department, you need maybe 5. I don't know. But the point is, beyond the languages, 3 destinations would be nice. At the most.
You guys are my dream. You see, 3 would be great. I always say maybe 5 at the very most. They've studied it. People don't remember anything more than that, and they will only remember the very last choice that they heard. So despite that, I mean, even just yesterday, I voiced an IVR that had 12 different choices in the opening menu, and then they had 12. And the last option was, if this is a medical emergency, hang up and dial 911. No, that has happened before. But yes, so 5 options. I hate subdirectories a lot. I think if you force the caller to drill deeper into several different subdirectories, my bank actually asks for my language preference at every level of the subdirectory, like I've had a chance to learn French, as I've gone through the IVR. It's craziness.
Yeah, that's atrocious. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, so I apologize to anybody who's already heard it, but I actually was trying to reserve a table at a restaurant that went through 2 minutes of what they did, basically where they were located, how there was a nearby parking lot you could go to, and blah, blah, blah. And if you want to reserve, please press 1. There were no languages, just on and on. So another thing that you've probably said, Allison, on your tutorials and blog posts is don't go through a whole long thing before giving the choices. Give the choices and then go through the long thing, but don't make it long.
The long thing.
That's a great tip.
Oh, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
A good tip, because restaurants, I don't know if restaurants constitute a meaningful percentage of your business, but one of the things that I found is there are restaurant, call them not chains, but groups where they'll have a phone number that is for the store, if you will, but it will also be their corporate phone number. And so if you want to place a to-go order, you have to navigate to a second level menu anyway, because you're getting, are we doing something product related or are we doing something corporate? And they should actually have a second dedicated number for that ordering process. So you don't have to do that. But then you find that these are sort of family operations, and they just don't think that way. They think about efficiencies in the kitchen, not efficiencies for the client.
I'm into that, brother.
I actually ordered something once online, Allison, and you were the first part of it, the general stuff. If you do this, dial 1 and so on. And then when it came up to actually paying, an absolute horrible female voice came on that had nothing to do with you, and did the last 3 prompts.
Yes.
And I thought that was one of probably the worst thing I've ever heard, because it's so confidence killing, for one thing, because you get to the payment, it's almost like woman in the middle attack.
Yeah. And where that comes from is people get their IVR professionally recorded, and then they want to make some changes, and they view it to be perhaps too complicated or too expensive to contact me again to make some changes, which is not the case. So they just grab a staff member. I was actually approached by PF Chang's to do all of their IVR, and I got very excited about it. In the end, they decided to keep their current voice, who happens to be the ex-wife of one of their CEOs. She did it years ago, and they just want to keep her throughout the whole system, but she doesn't have professional gear and is very daunted by the technical aspect of recording IVR. So this guy has been pushing for me to take over, but she's kind of laid her territory there. So yeah, but yeah, one unified voice throughout the whole system. That would be another piece of advice.
Unified voice, and another very general comment I have, which is if you run a company, there are a couple of things you should do. The first thing is to go in and see at the welcome desk, whatever that's called in English, where you first walk in, right? Reception, is that it? In every business?
Yeah.
You should go in as a stranger or send somebody in who they don't know. Just see what the welcome is like, because there are 2 points of entry to any business. One is, well, there's email, of course, maybe too, but the point is, if it's going to be telephone, it's IVR. And when you finally reach somebody, what they're like. And by the way, if I can just do one more little rant, because, you know, that's what I do. I mean, has anyone not said horrible swear words when you hear the, for quality control purposes, this call will be recorded? I mean, I'm saying, you know, I hope the F it is, you know, or stuff like that. I wonder if anybody's ever listened to it.
But the point is, compliment, Randy.
That's
yeah. Me for staff training. I love it.
Well, not only that, they say this call may be recorded. What is it? Some random selection or something? Exactly. Everything is recorded. So, you know, just say it's recorded.
And I don't know if anybody remembers this, but I also was on a call where they said that, and then when they said it, and then the live person who answered said it, and I said, well, that's okay because I'm recording you. And she said, in that case, I can't talk to you, and hung up.
Really?
I wish I could remember who that was. It was a credit card processing company, by the way. And I had a long internet battle with them, folks, by the way. Let me just say, you must get in long internet battles to win. And they took $120 from me, did absolutely nothing. And I said, well, you know, you've done nothing. Now you refused my business, so give me the $120. Well, we can't do that. I said, oh, you can. Anyway, long story short, after 2 weeks of constant tweeting, Facebooking, and whatever else, suddenly I got the credit for $120.
So
point is,
shaming.
Yeah, but I mean, in a point where you're stealing my money, right? But getting back to Allison, which is the point, is that get your IVR stuff together. You really, really have to do it. Michael,
I have a question. Coming back to this idea that because I've seen it, and I hate to say, but I've perpetrated that using a local voice as opposed to getting it professionally done because it was perceived as cheaper or easier or whatnot. Might it be possible to do something? You know, the entire world is going to blah 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 as a service. Maybe it could be Allison as an annual subscription, where for some certain amount of money they would have ongoing access and therefore have more consistent IVR.
Great idea.
How do we price that, and how do people not take advantage of that?
Well, people don't take advantage of it because you set a reasonable limit. In other words, you say that it's going to be X times a month or whatever. You know, that has to be thought through. But it is a great. The general principle is fantastic, Michael. I think.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Also, the guys that I speak to. Oh, look at that.
Already done.
Oh, very good.
It's already there.
Cool. Very cool. Very slick. The problem is, and when I speak at conferences, hopefully I'm talking to guys who resell systems and, you know, who work with end users of, you know, both Asterisk and lots of other systems. The customer literally does not think about who will record their greeting. It's like the last thing on their minds. So if you guys offer it as almost like a line item in your transaction, that kind of eliminates that element of surprise of, oh, we want to get it up and running and who's going to voice the opening greetings. So that's been my whole strategy on LinkedIn. I've connected with a lot of resellers and installers of systems who are pretty grateful to have this resource and to think about it further upstream rather than after the customer's bought the system and gets it up and running and goes, we have nothing on our opening greeting, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Can I bring in a question that is more than a technical and psychological on IVRs. Where do you find you should say what is the option to press? Because some people argue that you should say press 1 for this, press 2 for that. I'd rather argue that it's probably best to say for that, press 1, for this, press 2. So you know what you're looking for, and consequently, you have the option. Otherwise, you need to remember the option and see if it matches with what you want. What is your take on that?
Okay, 2 things. That is not an Italian accent. I can tell you. Right?
No, yeah. I've been in Scotland for 13 years, so it's probably
okay. Actually, Corrado, I actually do agree with you. I think it should be presenting what the choice is and then the instruction of what to do. It's been studied, and actually people are pretty divided about that. They want people to remember the press 1, press 2 as the last thing they hear. I think it should be for this, do this. People will remember to do this. Anyone disagree? I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. I think that's standard here, and I was trying to find one of my numbers to call to show that. But yeah, I would agree with that. And
actually, I try to get people to shake it up. So I'll try to, just because it's more listenable, I'll have people write things like, for customer support, press 1. If you need such and such, press 2, or press 3 if you need to get straight to, shake it up a little bit and put the choice maybe at the beginning for 1. Yeah, I just think it's a bit more listenable. But if you want to do it all uniformed, have what it is and how to do it. To me, that just makes sense.
We all agree on that, I think. Any dissenters?
Yeah. And, I'm going to do a talk at Astricon called 10 Things Your Callers Will Never Tell You About Your IVR. And it's a little snarky. It's actually from the point of view of callers. And one of the points that I really want to get across is think about the last time you had to actually pick up a phone and call a company as opposed to dealing with your issue online. It probably meant that you had a very specific problem that wasn't answered by their FAQs, or unfortunately, it usually also means that you're upset about something, or that you're kind of riled up, or that you're on kind of a randy rant. And so if people design their IVRs with the idea that perhaps people are calling with a little bit of edginess and address that in the IVR, you'd be far ahead of most other people.
Yeah, put your most likely options, because you're called, at the very front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Randy, your story about the restaurant with, giving all the information in their opening thing, because Corrado, you're sort of in the message on hold business as well. I'm all for people putting interesting factoids about the restaurant. You can find parking here, la, 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 in an on hold sequence, but not in an opening greeting.
All right, I'm ready to do a dangerous demo here briefly, which is this. Here's my
Is it possible to do a dangerous demo in the absence of Major James Bodie?
I know, I'm just trying to get...
Bonjour et bienvenue chez Free. Pour une assistance sur votre offre mobile, tapez 1.
So for
votre Freebox, tapez 2.
Tapez 2.
Tapez 2, yeah.
So that's interesting because, and I've called them many times. So the first thing, they assume that French is your language because it's a French operator. So you don't have the language filter. Then that was actually very well done because it says, if you're calling about mobile, hit 1. If you're calling about, or maybe it was the opposite, whatever. Anyway, it's mobile 1, ISP 2. So that's already pretty well done. Then they're going to go into, obviously, you don't have internet or what your problem is. And I think they have maybe 4 to 5 levels. So they actually are doing well.
Yeah.
Now, I just recently experienced both T-Mobile and AT&T in the United States, and they're not that good.
No.
Go ahead, Al.
No. Yeah, and also if people identify probably the top 5 reasons why anyone would call you and front stack them according to urgency or popularity, I would imagine, customer support might be stacked up there at the top, but do them in popularity as to choice number one is probably the most often chosen one, and it goes down in importance. Yeah, it's amazing how many times I'll read a menu and the very last choice is probably the most critical and the most often chosen, if that makes sense.
In banking, usually what happens is they don't give your choice after about 5, and it's other, or talk to a human being. That's a good point, by the way. It would be if you really well, they can't very well say if you want to talk to a human being, hit star immediately, because because if they did that, everybody hit star, and then they'd be deluged with calls, and that is the whole point of IVR, isn't it? To filter and stop all the superfluous calls, or at least trying to route them. But the fact is that if you have too many choices, what happens is if there isn't a choice at the end after 5 things, and it goes, well, if this didn't cover it, hit 6, then that's kind of uncomfortable. And in banking, it's actually kind of common.
I have come across situations in which people would prefer to deal with an IVR than a real person. And a colleague of mine called Mike, we'll just call him Mike for now, because that was his name. He worked for a company that produced telephony solutions, and they did one for a hospital specifically to be on the end of the sexually transmitted disease test results line. And on this particular one, would you believe that people prefer to have a machine tell them whether they tested positive or negative?
I would imagine. And
here's the interesting thing. They found when they analysed the data that they were getting some calls twice from the same number, and the service accused the telephony people of saying, look, there's something wrong with your service because we're getting these 2 phone calls. When in fact what it was the same person ringing twice and then handing the phone to their partner and go, listen to this, I haven't got it.
See, David, now you've made me want to voice, you have tested positive for gonorrhea.
I was just going to ask you, because you have, in the message, obviously this has existed for probably 10 years, where you have Allison saying, you have, and then it's going to be like 6 messages. Well, it could be, you have chlamydia. So maybe we should go through those, Allison. I'll contact you privately for the list.
You have for your next sexually transmitted diseases.
Yeah.
For details on which one, please press 3.
I'd like to hear that result again.
The other thing I wanted to say about Allison and what you were saying, Randy, about having different language choices. Here in the UK, I run alongside the work I do for Digium, I run a small training company called Telespeak. And of course, Telespeak is Digium's authorised training partner in the UK. So we just had to have Allison answer the phone for us. However, in the UK, not everybody appreciates what they would see as an American accent. Obviously, we know, but it's not American in Allison's individual case. So Allison, I love a bit of Tim Hortons, especially with chili and the donuts, but not at the same time.
Now you're talking.
Allison very kindly voiced a message that said, welcome to Telespeak, the UK's home of Asterisk training. And before she went on to the options, she said, if you'd prefer to hear this guidance in the Queen's English, press 1. And if people press 1, it actually goes over to exactly the same choices, but narrated by a British English accent rather than the lovely Allison.
It's nice that you give that choice,
Yeah. You can do that automatically with reading the caller ID of the person, like we do.
Yeah. But then we need to get a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And Irish.
I actually had to do an auto dialer that called up registered sex offenders to tell them that they were in violation of their parole. So that was kind of fun. And I said to the client, so you want me to use the sexy voice? He said, God, no, that would just be awful. You've been a bad boy. Yeah, no.
Whatever next.
Nice. I have another question that maybe Allison can answer. Is it an urban legend or is it truth that some companies have put some AI behind IVRs and on hold that is capable of listening to what you say, and if you are swearing at it, they pass you immediately to an operator. Is that?
You know, I have heard that there is software out there that can gauge the emotional level of the caller. In fact, who was it that spoke at Camilio World about it? Was it Ule that kind of ranted on about that? He had some good ideas about that. But yeah, I mean, there is software that could say, it's time to call your mother. It's that time in the week where you need to call your mother. Last time you talked to her, you had a little bit of an edge to your voice, so you might want to be nicer this time. I mean, that's an exaggerated thing. But yes, as far as I know, it's not something I know too much about, but there is software that can gauge the metrics of the caller's voice and assess their emotional state, and can give the live agent a head up saying, by the way, this guy's really upset. So handle him accordingly.
I always thought that similar technology could also be used to detect buying signs in the person's voice, so that the agent could have like a little bar chart in the corner of their screen saying, make the close right now. They're just in the zone. Ask for
That's
that
awesome.
deal.
Yeah, that's great.
Great idea.
Yes. So
You heard it here first on the VUC.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm extremely excited for Astricon, and I hope I see everybody there. I'm really sad, Andy, you're not going to be there. Sad face.
Andy, are there any plans for the virtual Andy, the one that visited ClueCon?
Well, not in terms of the same way, but I am hoping that at least last year for Dangerous Demos, so I could see what was going on when I was trying to run a voting system completely blind. Fred connected me WebRTC so that I could actually watch what was going on. So I'm hoping that somebody is going to be nice enough to do that for me as well. This
A bit of Posner power. Well, Fred will be there again, so maybe he can fulfill that role. For those people that want to turn up and see Alison in real life, Alison is on 1 till 1:45 on the Wednesday. So that's Wednesday, the 4th of October, for her talk about 10 things your callers will not tell you, or even never tell you, about your IVR.
So is there anything being streamed this year?
It's more than my job's worth to tell you this, but there will be 1 or 2 stream sessions. I just can't tell you what they are at the moment, because for those of you that know Julie Webb and know her ability to do the evil stare, that could be coming my way if I divulge too much at this stage.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, David, I don't know what you're talking about. Julie's just full of smiles.
Okay.
To be honest,
anyway, Allison has to leave soon, or now, I'm not sure which. And then we're going to move on to more Astricon with Dan Jenkins and with the Mr. Dufett. Allison, did we miss anything? We left anything out?
I don't believe so. I think we talked about everything. I did hit a landmark, if people saw on Twitter. I've hit 10,000 LinkedIn contacts. What?
All right.
And I can tell you, it's really the only marketing I do anymore. And it's like shooting fish in a barrel for me, from my industry. It's been great for me. A lot of people look at me with a blank stare and go, what? LinkedIn? But I find it incredible. So anyhow. It
has its place. It has its place.
Quick question. Did you ever use LinkedIn advertising at all amongst those contacts?
Do you know, I have not delved into that. That's sort of on the list to do, for sure. This has all been just me going out and grabbing people. Yeah.
Apparently, they offer a very, very targeted service. I've not delved into it yet myself, but interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they targeted me so hard I quit. Go. I'm sorry, go.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me on, and I hope to see everybody. Randy, you will not be there either. I'm so sad.
No, but I could be there virtually if somebody figures out how to do that. And if I have connectivity in my new house, which I'll be in next week.
And that opens a new chapter.
Yep, it does. Thank you, Allison. We all love you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Allison.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao to Allison. Ciao, Bella. So now, David, you want to do a little number, and then we can get Dan in, because he's going to be going too. So go ahead.
I can be the segue from Alison, a member of the Commonwealth, to Dan, another member of the Commonwealth in the UK. So, Astricon coming next week, 3rd to the 5th. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 57 or 58 different speakers. 2 keynotes, one from Dean Bublé, or Dean Bublé, actually, as I think he prefers to be called, and that's the one that's kind of looking towards the future. The future of the communications context in which Asterisk finds itself, along with what he believes is overhyped as well. So Dean is sometimes known for giving a contrarian perspective. So at the same time as looking towards the future, he'll also be taking a sideways glance at things that he thinks people are maybe overhyping. And then the keynote on the second day of the main 2 days, on Thursday the 5th, is community member Brian Capuch. Well, I'm sure you know Randy has been in the Asterisk community for a long, long time, and I can already feel the community love oozing out of that session. And the title of that talk is Asterisk and Me, from Brian Capuch, a telephony love story. So I'm very much looking forward to that. In terms of the tracks we've got a business track, we've got an infrastructure track, we've got a deployment track, we've got a developer track, and we had so many talk applications this year that we've had to have a developer extra track, so 2 developer tracks this year. I like what you're doing there, Randy, with the screen movie.
Just trying to get my head the same size as everybody else's.
The need to conform. Why fit in, Randy, when you were born? You, of all people, were born to stand out.
I was born to stand out, and I'm standing right now, almost.
You certainly were. Would you like me to go through a few random selections of talks that are happening next week?
I would absolutely like to do that, but I would like to remind people that Ole Johansson and I were shilling for 2 competing tracks in the halls of Astricon, and I'm going to guess this was probably in Phoenix. And I don't remember if you remember this, David, but we were yelling in the halls in alternatively going, now starting in room such and such, this, such and such talk. And then he would go and then I would go. And it was actually really good fun. Astricon is a lot of fun and I do miss it. I did not miss Las Vegas because I really don't like Las Vegas, but I miss going there because it's a terrific assemblage of unique individuals. So now with that introduction, you may go ahead.
Okay, yes. I remember that, what you were talking about. And I remember Ole kind of bordering from assertive towards aggressive in his advertising of what was going on.
No, it was Game of Thrones Astricon version,
Yes. Okay. So a couple of highlights then. Well, since we got Dan coming up, I must mention Dan's talk, Dan Jenkins, talking about WebRTC striking back. That's on the developer extra track. And that's Wednesday the 4th, 10 till 10:45. He's actually up against Evan McGee, the bow tie wearing Ring Plus dude, who will be talking about Asterisk Swarm, intelligent, self-healing, and geo-distributed Asterisk networks. For those of you who have met the Sipgate guys, one of them will be over at Astricon this year, called Joran Vinzens, talking about superpowers and deployment tools for VoIP systems. And that's on the same track just before the lovely Allison that we were just talking about. VUC regular, Astricon veteran, and ClueCon veteran as well, Fred Posner. We all love Fred. He'll be talking about using Asterisk and Camelio for scalability and security. So I didn't even get to the Thursday just yet. And I'll just highlight a couple of Thursday sessions. Oh, I've gone a bridge too far. Hold on.
You're good. You're good.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got Asterisk 15 video conferencing from Josh Culp and Kevin Harwell. They're 2 of the Asterisk development team, and they'll be looking at what we've been doing in video terms in Asterisk recently. And then ViCiDial. You couldn't really have an Astricon without a ViCiDial session or 2. And Michael Cargill will be talking about how they ported ViCiDial to Asterisk 13 and AMI version 2. So lots of different things for people to get their teeth into.
And I was sharing this, but I'll have to share it again. I'm not 100% sure why Daniel is featured here, but he's on the top. Camelio SIP server co-founder.
Well, that's a very cool thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then beneath, you can look at Dean Bubley, as you mentioned, Brian Capuch. All of this stuff is available on
Spot the new James Bodie picture there, right at the top at the moment.
Oh, let's see. Oh my goodness! Look, wait, that's not him. Wow, that does not look like him.
I think he did it especially. Do you know what I think, Randy? I think he was trying to mimic you. I think he was trying to get a bit Randy-esque.
Yes, he might be Randy-esque. Look at Carsten. Carsten Bach is there.
Yes.
David Bender, Dan Christian Bogos. I'm not pronouncing these right. Oh, Sylvain Boilly. I can't remember. I don't even know how that's pronounced.
Well, I believe,
he's living he's Frenchman living in Canada. Joshua's there. So anyway, all these pictures. James Finstrom, Matt Florell.
Yeah, actually, Randy, there is one particular session I must also mention, because this is a mega highlight. If you could get 5 of the leaders of possibly the most important open source communication projects in the world in one room, you'd be very excited. And that's why I'm excited, because we've got Matt from Asterisk, Matt Fredrickson. We've got Tony Minisali, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from FreeSwitch. We've got Daniel from Kama-Ilio. We've got Bogdan from OpenSIPs, and we've got Lorenzo from Homer, or QXIP, all 5 of them on a special panel at Astricon. So that's that's a heavyweight panel right there.
That is absolutely amazing. One must comment in passing that there is one female person in this entire group.
One can comment in passing on that if one wanted to.
I don't mean that that's some kind of lapsus on your part.
There is actually more. The Astricon webpage doesn't work properly. You have to click on view more on SCED, or however you pronounce it. There are more women, at least 2.
Susan Elder for one, from Jenny. Allison, the voice.
That's a good point. In fact, Allison isn't on this list for some reason.
Yeah, you've got to click on, at the bottom, it says view more on SCED. The Astricon.
View more on, did you say?
Yeah, view more on.
I don't even see, but anyway, the point is, that is quite a list.
James, there are more speakers than what you can see.
James's photo is freaking me out, but anyway, it's a weird photo. There you go. David, if you're done, I have a thing to ask Dan also.
Yeah, you carry on.
Okay, Dan, we have been talking about a really exciting development. Astricon is, of course, next week, but next year. Let's hear a little about that. We heard a little about it last week, I think, but it's probably coming together a little bit more each week. So why don't you flog that thing again?
Yeah. So I guess first off, you should all come and hear my talk at Astricon next week. I can't even remember what it's called. WebRTC Strikes Back, I think. It's all about how the current state of WebRTC, let's say. So I'm expecting to have some interesting conversations with Dean next week about WebRTC based on a tweet he did today. Anyway, yeah, ComCon. Yeah, it's evolving every single week. So if you watch Twitter/Facebook, then you'll know the CFP opens next Wednesday. The call for papers, if you don't know what CFP is, that opens next Wednesday on the same day that I'm talking at Astricon. So expect a bit of that in my talk. And then tickets go on sale next week as well. So yeah, things are progressing fairly quickly. And oh, I should also say, we've now got our first sponsor as well from Telu, the company behind PJSIP. So they are sponsoring ComCon next year. They're our first sponsor. A couple more in the pipeline, but those will get announced whenever they get announced. So,
I'm sure Digium will be happy to sponsor it. And also, is there a website, Dan?
comcon.xyz, because I couldn't get comcon.uk.
Really? Well, yeah, ComCon's probably difficult. Anyway, yeah, people should go there, follow it. We're very early. I mean, I would like to.
Yeah, it's June next year. So I mean, we've got 7 and a bit months until the event. So we've got a lot of time. However, because it's very, very different to say ClueCon and Astricon to a degree. Yeah, it is very different. There are only 90 tickets or so. So, I mean, when the tickets go on sale next week, you want to pick one up pretty quickly because there are very limited tickets, which is going to make for a very different type of event to Astricon or to ClueCon.
I agree, and we're very interested, and I think what I would be aiming for would be that everyone, all of our core members on the VUC will be there. I can't guarantee that, but that's what I'm aiming for, and that would mean Andy, Corrado, James, myself, I'm a little further, and then Michael, who's quite a bit further. So we're going to look into what kind of talks we might be able to do, and also demos, dangerous demos, all of the whole thing. But the entire VUC crew would like to be there, and of course that would allow us to meet a lot of folks in the UK and the near and Europe. We have people in Switzerland, we have people in Italy, lots of friends in Europe. As far as the Americans go, and David Duffett, I count you almost in that realm. You're kind of stride on that chair. But hopefully we can grab a few Americans on the way. But this is really, we don't want to say it's Eurocentric, but it is at least so much easier to get to than any place else. So we're very much looking forward to it, and I hope to take some steps. Unfortunately, Dan, and this is a private comment to you, no one else should be listening. We're moving house in the next few days. So if I don't answer your, I got your thing today, but I would like to be doing this, but at the same time, I'm literally, my shelves are almost empty.
I know how much of a stress moving is, trust me. So we'll catch up after Astricon.
Okay, but we do have full intention to be the full complement of the VUC there. All right, that's all from me, and I do have to go because we are going to the new house to do some things. So let me just make sure that David and Dan and anybody else, Andy, Corrado, or Michael, has said everything they need to say before we turn this thing off. So over to you, David, first of all, Astricon, astricon.net for the details, and what else?
Yes, astricon.net will do the trick. But we had a discount code, didn't we, for the VUC? Was it VUC1? Is that what it was?
If you don't remember, I don't. But I think it is VUC1.
I can look it up while we're doing this. Let's just put code VUC. I'll just get that one up. Discount codes. And it is, yes, VUC1 will get people off of 20% off if they didn't already get their passes. Looking forward to seeing everybody in Orlando next week, including...
So you can still buy tickets, David?
I beg your pardon?
You can still buy tickets if you have not booked a ticket yet?
You can, yes, if you're in that embarrassing position that you didn't get your pass just yet, then it is still possible. And with a little VUC1, you can get 20% off as well.
That's right, folks. For those of you who have been on two chairs, between two chairs, as we say in French, you can actually still get that 20% off. So go for it. That's
right. Anyway, yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody next week, and including the British contingent. And it turns out that Dan, myself, Major James Bodie, and who else, Dan, is going to be at Gatwick Airport tomorrow morning?
Simon Woodhead is going to be there, and Fraser from Simwood is also going to be there. So that's going to be a party in the BA Lounge.
It'll be a right contingent.
Party in the BA Lounge. Go for it.
Yeah, wanted to say thank you to you, Randy, for inviting me along. Pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you, David. You can come on any subject. It doesn't have to be Asterisk and Astricon.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind, because I do have a little project brewing in the background, but we'll leave that for another time.
We are happy to hear about it. Dan, we are going to be flogging this thing from now until next year, so don't worry about that. Okay, we'll see you all there. And for this week, this is the VUC. I don't even know if we have a guest or who that person may be or the topic for next week, but I will be in a new place, so I'm counting on the crew, Andy, Corrado, Michael, and James Bodie.
We're on it.
Of course, they'll be busy, but somebody's got to do something. See you next week, folks.
Cheers.